Lots to talk about. We have two huge Supreme Court decisions in back-to-back days. Let's start with the recent, which is today, in which the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade by a vote of 6-3, in which the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which is basically a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision that does not confer a right to abortion, overturning both Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. The Dobbs decision had been anticipated since May 2nd of 2022, when a draft opinion in the case was leaked to the news media, and that's coming from an article by Josh Gernston at Political, where Chief Justice John Roberts confirmed as authentic the following day, and the leak reportedly caused turmoil in the court and widespread distrust among the justices, the clerks, the staff, and sprang an ongoing internal investigation to identify the leaker. For those who are not familiar with Roe versus Wade, it was a landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1973, in which the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion. The decision, which struck down many U.S. federal and state abortion laws, fueled and heated ongoing debate in the United States about whether or to what extent abortion should be legal, who should decide the legality of abortion, and what the role of moral and religious views in a political sphere should be. I don't think religion should play any part in it whatsoever. And of course, the rejoicing of this decision are from the certain individuals of the evangelical Christian community, or as I call them, the fanatics, Trumpers, people who are extremist and don't have any moderate views of conservatism. And I think the hypocrisy from these people basically can be illuminated with just keeping it recent, Trump's own decisions when he was president. And one of them, for example, was when Trump and the House Republicans cut in 2017 Social Security, which would harm children with disabilities. So these pro-lifers are basically hypocrites. In 2017, Trump and the House Republicans proposed cutting supplemental security income from poor children with disabilities, which would harm some of America's most vulnerable children and their families as well. The proposal would cut Social Security by more than $8 billion over the next decade. So that means that even under the Biden administration, whoever's going to be the president in the next administration, this cut will continue. And it will also shrink benefits for roughly 250,000 children with disabilities by between 38 to 66%, according to the Center on Budget for Policy Priorities. And also, regarding Trump's budget cuts to healthcare. And also, again, in 2017, in addition to a proposal to eliminate $800 billion from Medicaid, the Trump administration were to make deep cuts to other health programs, including $5.8 billion from the overall National Institute of Health budget, including $1 billion from the National Cancer Institute, $838 million from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and $575 million from the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, including $403 million from health workforce programs, including mental and behavioral programs, diversity training, and select nursing and physician training programs. And that's coming from the Fierce Healthcare Institute website. So the hypocrisy regarding these pro-lifers of the extreme, we talk about the fringe extremists of the right, not in any way classic conservatives, is illuminated by their own words and their own deeds, and what they consider the sanctity of life up until you're born, and then they don't give a damn, right? They don't give a damn. Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a New York gun permit law that would effectively will allow more people to legally carry guns on the streets of the largest cities in the United States. And this caused a major outrage from, of course, the fanatics of the left. And they are basically had no problem with the rampant amount of crime in states. I live in New York City, which has a exponential rise in aggravated assaults and robberies due to the Bail Reform Act by then Mayor Bill de Blasio in 2019, which allowed for felons who have been convicted in the past of multiple crimes, including felonies, to be out in the street. And that's why we have a jump in crime. So this gun permit law makes sense, right? But the fanatics of the left basically say, oh, well, what makes you think that these people aren't going to be criminals? And they'll just shoot everybody left and right, and this is what's going to happen. Well, we have that anyway in these major democratic cities. These fanatics of the left and these corporate establishment Democrats who have no compulsion or compassion to uphold any type of decent law or care about the common citizen, including you people of the left, which is, I don't understand why you even vote in the first place. But the hypocrisy of the left is just as illuminating as the right, because when the Biden administration gave $5.6 billion on February 24th to Ukraine, and now an additional $1 billion of military aid to Ukraine. And by the way, the Pentagon in the Bloomberg News report just last year basically said, we don't know where these weapons are going. That sounds familiar because that's exactly what we did in Afghanistan in 1979. And most of those weapons went to the ultra-Orthodox Mujahideen. Well, what's in Ukraine? Well, led by the military ultra-nationalists. Are they going to become the new Mujahideen? You have no compulsion, no hesitation when it comes to sending billions of dollars of military aid to Ukraine. And not only that, the Biden administration, and this is where the biggest hypocrisy comes from, when Biden ran on the presidential election, one of the first things he said was that he was not going to support Saudi Arabia in their war against the Houthis in Yemen. And what did he do in the first 2 weeks in office? Well, he authorized a large hundreds of millions of dollars of aid to Saudi Arabia. In fact, the Biden administration has approved the $5 billion of new weapons of sale to the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Millions of dollars of military aid leading to the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. In fact, the two largest humanitarian crises in the world right now outside of North Africa and India are Ukraine and Yemen. That's not living up to the idea of the left basically saying, well, we need to curtail violence. Well, what you're trying to say is we need to curtail violence here. I don't care what happens anywhere else, but that's your hypocrisy, right? You're willing to basically support the Biden administration, sending billions of dollars to two countries that basically don't know where these weapons are going. And by the way, with Saudi Arabia, you know where those weapons are going. They're being used to kill over 500,000 Yemeni lives. And you want to argue about the Second Amendment and how it doesn't pertain to today because they were talking about muskets and simple rifles. Well, no, that wasn't the case. In regards to the Second Amendment, some scholars point out to the prefatory language in which a well-regulated militia is to argue that the framers intended only to restrict Congress from legislating away a state's right to self-defense. What did the framers of the Constitution know about? Well, they knew about tyranny. And that's what they were fighting against. And that's why they wanted a well-regulated militia. A militia means average Americans, just like you and me. Men between the ages of 16 and 60. If so be that the federal government, using their draconian powers, using the military against the people. Isn't that what the English did? And also, this is the reason why we don't have a standing militia anymore in any state. Excuse me. The Dick Act, which basically eliminated the idea of having, which invalidated the militia in 1903. Charles Dick enacted legislation known as the Efficiency in Militia Act of 1903, in which the act created an early National Guard, which codified the circumstances under which the Guard could be federalized. And that's what replaced the militia. The National Guard is not coming to your defense if the federal government one day decided to make you the enemy combatant. Oh, you don't think the military would shoot on its own citizens or detain its own citizens? Yes, you would have some dissidents, but you would also have the private military industrial corporations like Academi, formerly known as Blackwater. And yes, some people in the military would do just that. They did it to the Japanese in World War II, average Japanese in internment camps. Hell, they killed 1 million people in Iraq, approximately, on the basis of a lie. What makes you think they wouldn't do it here, where it counts? You think you trust the federal government for that? That's the reason why I don't vote. And I think the rest of you, centrists, libertarians, this is the time right now to win over the people who are fed up with the voting system, who are fed up with the federal government from the left and right. And I think the libertarians in this country need to basically harp on getting those people on the fence, the moderates, the centrists, of both the left and right. I don't vote. I don't vote for criminals. It's a moral duty. It's an obligation not to keep putting in these people in power. They don't care. They want to talk about ignoring the Supreme Court. They want to talk about expanding the Supreme Court. They want you to do, and when I'm talking about you, I'm talking about the people. Nancy Pelosi and Alexandria Cortez and Mitch McConnell and Matt Gaetz, they're not in the streets with the people. They're in the Congress or in the House or in the Senate, away from the people. They'll only use you as photo captions. That's it. See, I'm a man and I'm a woman of the people. There is no two-party system here. There is a one-party system. And until you understand that, you're going to suffer the penalties of this federal government, who are the enemy of the people. And I think it's high time that people of the left and right, even the extremists, take out the IV, the proverbial, the allegorical IV from their arm. Stop watching TV. Stop watching the freaking news. Stop believing everything they're telling you. And fight the good fight. That is against the federal government of the United States, because that is the enemy of all human life.